Hi, I'm Bethany Warren, and you are joining me to listen to the podcast of our Millwall fan show with the No One Likes Us talking team and hosted by Eamonn Barclay, which is available every Friday at 8 p.m.
It's Friday night and it is our Millwall fan show, and I've got the No One Likes Us talking team of Ted Robinson and the one and only Jeff Burnige.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care.
Friend of the show, Jackie Knight, spoke to me earlier about her friend Richard Walker, who is 70 years young and hails from Southwark. She told me that Richard is a massive loyal Millwall fan who enjoyed getting to the games when his health allowed. At the moment, Richard is sadly located in King's College Hospital due to a significant health decline. Jackie and her friends want to give you, Richard, a big thank you for your long, tireless support to help improve the lives of people with learning disabilities. Richard himself has a learning disability and uses his experience of growing up in the care system to help others. Richard, they tell me you love photography, art, history and floristry. Plus you loved getting out and about to all the free events over London and photographing them. A lovely story going back some years is at your first exhibition you sold a painting, and true to your form, you chose to donate the proceeds back to the art group you attended for artists with learning disabilities, so everyone could enjoy your success. With this donation, Richard, the tutor organised a trip of his choice for all the artists, which meant that you treated everyone to a memorable day out at Hever Castle. Until recently, you loved attending your floristry for people with learning disabilities, where you showed great real talent. And again, you would often donate the bouquets you produced for others to enjoy. Richard, you have brought people much fun over the years with your cheerful, generous spirit and your honourable commitment to helping those who are vulnerable. And you enjoy a joke too. So if any Millwall supporters know Richard or have a joke for Richard, it would be lovely to hear from you. Jackie's friend Prodipta, who is in daily contact with Richard, sends love and get well wishes from Margaret, Jackie and herself. Well, Richard, you're a true hero in our time, and here is a den memory from your fellow Lions.
Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. Let 'em all come down to the dead. Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. We'll only have to beat 'em again. It's the best team in London, no, the best team of both. Everybody knows us, we're called Millwall. Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. Let 'em all come down to the den.
Hi guys, how are you, Ted? All right?
I'm all right, mate. I'm glad I'm not the one and only anyway.
Well, you could be if you demonstrated why you might be, but hey, we can put up with that. But it's good to hear from you again. And Jeff, how are you?
Yeah, you can take the one and only in as a positive and a negative, can't you? So, so you don't need to be offended, Ted. I think you meant the one and only awful Jeff Burnige. Carry on.
Oh, it's a bit.
It'll be one of them shows.
Hey, we'll send our commiserations to Bethany Warren, who was due to be with us tonight, but she's not feeling too well. Bethany, we'll see you back on the show soon.
Yeah, all the best.
Yeah,
All the best, Bethany.
that's it. Last week, we had a warning from the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, as you might remember, who highlighted that some form of the measures will have to be in place for a long period of time. And he said that they're likely to be to at least the end of the year. This week, we heard from FIFA's Chief Doctor, Michael de Hoog, who warns against restarting the interrupted 2019-20 campaign and suggested governing bodies prepare for action next season. And then in the week, we heard Gary Rowett, who spoke on TalkSport Radio with Jim White, and he made some interesting statements about his thoughts were surrounding going back and playing football. We'll just listen to Gary talk.
I'm interested to hear you say, Gary, that you would be happy enough to get on with it, playing behind closed doors, because, Gary, your fans are some of the most passionate in the country, you know that. So, I mean, they wouldn't welcome you guys playing behind closed doors, but they would understand it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is, I mean, it's so difficult at the moment, isn't it? Because, of course, every team, will see their own home fans as being massively, massively crucial. And not just that, but, you win a game, you want to win it with your fans, otherwise you're just winning the game and it's 3 points. And it kind of just doesn't feel like it quite has the same meaning. I think the challenge at the moment is that we talk a lot about the Premier League and all of these things, and I understand that. But I think the difference is the Premier League probably, and all the players probably have a lot more options in terms of, from their morality point of view of what they do and what don't want to do. I think the difficulty is whatever the Premier League do is going to have a massive impact on the lower leagues. And so at the moment, I think that what's so difficult is, of course, safety, making sure that less people, die with this virus is massively, massively everybody's priority. But along with that, we're trying to keep businesses solvent, and football's no different to that, is it? And we're trying to keep the optimism of the country going, and sport plays a massive impact. So I think it's such a balance that we're facing, and I think that's why everybody is wanting to try and at least see if we can go ahead. But of course, as we know, there's so many implications to that, and it only needs one or two players, one or two clubs to oppose it to make it all look increasingly more difficult.
Ted, some of the No One Likes Us Talking team have held some strong views about life not returning to normal for quite some time, and that football should not happen until the risk is as low as reasonably practical. Quotes such as, "We should not do this, but honour the NHS workers who gave their lives for us, and also many other key workers too." What do you make of the FIFA statement, Project Restart, and what appears to be a rebellion against starting in June?
Well, do you know what, Eamonn, when sort of this sort of time of our lives, what's going on, you have plenty of time to think about things. And I'm a bit sceptical about FIFA, anyone from FIFA coming up and starting saying things, because FIFA have got their own agenda, which is obviously staging the World Cup. I think there's a statement made with the protection of the timing of the next World Cup. You know what I mean? The statements come out to say, I think you should forget about last season, start this season. Also, that it gets the football calendar back in sync, if you know what I mean. And yeah. I'm not saying that we should ignore what any medical person says or whatever, but it just feels like, because the Netherlands have piped up, haven't they, and said that they've cancelled their season, and so have the French and whatever. But as everybody keeps saying, every country's got its own individual situation of where they are in the whole of this coronavirus and whatever. And I've always been an advocate, Eamonn, and you know this, that in some form or the other, this season that has been started should be finished. It just doesn't sit right with me that people will just close the season off 3/4 of the way through. Whatever way they do it, and we all know that it looks as though they're going to go for the behind closed doors option if it's available to them. I think that is the right thing to do. As I say, with FIFA coming out like that, we know they moved the World Cup for 2020 to an earliest time. They want the football calendar back in sync. And that just seems to me to be what the statement's about. But obviously he's a medical man, so everybody will take note of it, everyone will listen to it. But I think with Germany doing their thing, and it looks like they're going to be back up playing football in a not too distant future, in some form or the other. It seems strange that some countries are, some countries ain't, but I think it's rightly so. Whatever happens in this country will be dictated to by the government and their medical people anyway. And there'll be a stringent sort of set of plans that we'll have to follow for that to happen in any case. So if it is to be behind closed doors, that's how it should be for me. In any form or the other, this season should be completed.
Okay.
Well, the interesting thing is that I personally haven't heard a UEFA response to what that FIFA medical man said. Because I suspect that UEFA will have a different agenda regarding finishing the season to what FIFA will have, because a lot of FIFA members aren't in the same situation as European leagues where they're almost finished, and where UEFA want to know who's going to be in their competitions, the Champions League, the Europa League, the respective qualifying competitions for those two. So I don't know. The fact that UEFA haven't come out and said, yes, we agree, I think it's still open. And you made a good point, Ted. The Germans certainly look like they're going to restart, and it may well be behind closed doors. Personally, I would accept it being behind closed doors if necessary to finish the season, because it doesn't look like we'll be allowed to roll over into September and October and then finish the current season. It doesn't seem as if that would be possible because of the money men, the sponsors, the TV contracts, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. I still hope that we might get some football behind closed doors in June and possibly July.
Don't you think, Jeff? I mean, I'm of the opinion I would rather have this season finished in some form or the other, and then perhaps make the adjustments that might need to be made next season in some way, whether that is to drop one of the cups or something or the other. Like, I don't know, but make some adjustment for when the next season starts, that everybody knows from the word go that is what the adjustments are to that season, and that is how they're going to fit that season in.
What you mean, starting it late because we've finished this season in August and September?
Yeah, in whatever way they have to.
They won't let us. The TV contracts that the Premier League and the EFL have got, and the sponsorship contracts and the players' contracts, they would all be legally actionable if we do not complete it in due time. Certainly,
no,
July,
sorry, Jeff.
Possibly June.
Yeah, no, what I was meaning, I think they should get that finished in some form or the other, without a doubt. But if there's any catching up needing to be done, then it should be done next season, in my opinion, if they can. I mean, I don't know how they're going to. It may just be, if we do it like you say, Jeff, there, then obviously it'll just be a case of the players will literally roll straight on into the next season. I personally don't see a problem with that. I see a lot of things being spoken about how long it'll take players to get fit and this, that and the other. They're all talking like they're going to be living in a perfect world. Well, I'm sorry, if we have to get this finished in an imperfect world, then just go out and play football. You know what I mean? I think people are making a little bit too much of the fact that players will need so many weeks to get back into full fitness and whatever.
They've just had it. They've just had their pre-season.
They've
just had their closed season, rather, haven't they?
Well, they've been on holiday, that's for sure.
Players' contracts, unless I'm much mistaken, it's still the same as it was in my day. Although they do end on the June the 30th,
that's right.
They're still paid by their club for another month until July the 31st.
Yeah, contracts are going to be an issue, but there was another interesting development that I'll just run it by both of you. It looks like, certainly as far as the Premiership, that there's an offer for them to go out to Qatar and play their games there, where the virus has had very little effect. So that would mean that they would go out to that country, I suppose, be in isolation in a whole range of hotels that would probably be empty. We'd be seeing them on Sky Sports virtually every day with different teams playing, etc., etc. What do you think about that then?
If that's the only way to finish the season, I take it. I want the season finished. I think Ted's the same, like you said.
Yes.
I want the season
Jeff.
finished, even if we get to a point where crucial matches are played, and when the crucial positions of promotion, relegation, European qualification are settled, if some of the matches are then dead, I don't even mind if they are declared draws. But I do want to see, if possible, the season.
Simon Jordan, he's talking about corporate manslaughter and things like that. And on top of that, we heard from Anderson, the mayor of Merseyside, who said there's no way he wants to see the Liverpool games being played to the title while the risk is so high, because he can just visualise hundreds and thousands of Liverpool fans all congregating together and exposing themselves to the virus yet again.
Well, that tells me that, I mean, for a match to take place in this country, you have to be approved by the safety committee.
That's right.
Right? And that includes and is largely dominated by the local authority and the local police force. If they're not going to sanction a game taking place, and it's something I hadn't thought of, you play the game behind closed doors, and every pub in Liverpool is rammed to the doors, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good point. Even if you go and play the games in Qatar and it's on television, it's still going to be the same. The crowd are going to congregate together, aren't they?
As Jeff said, I am in agreement with Jeff. I think if that's the only way that you can finish the season, then so be it. But look, we are going to be governed by what our government tells us we can and can't do to start with. I mean, at the end of the day, coming to the points that Jeff was just making, and that, you know, there will be a set of rules that will be put in place, I'm sure, for them to give them permission to play the games behind closed doors, which obviously will take into account that there will be some idiots, if they're being told that the games are going to be behind closed doors, that are going to turn around and say, I reckon I can creep in there somehow or the other, or I'm going to go and get there.
Yeah.
Now, all them things will be planned for, if I can put it that way, if they get the go-ahead to play these games behind closed doors. Personally, I mean, as I say, whatever way we finish the season, it's not going to be normal, and someone will be turning around and saying, well, we had so many games, like I've already said about Millwall. The biggest thing about our football club is we had so many home games to go to get ourselves into the playoffs, which is a big loss to us, because now, if we do play whatever games we play, it's going to be, whether it's at the Den or not, it's going to be on a neutral backing, because there's been no fans there. So, but as Jeff quite rightly said, I would rather have a finish of this season in whatever way than a non-finish. That to me, at least it's one out on the football field.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
the thing I want to avoid is the season becoming null and void. That means every goal scored is not a goal. Every point, every result is not a result. I don't want that. I'd rather see the season declared finished as it stands at the moment. You then have to have some kind of management committee meeting of the EFL and of the Premier League to decide who to nominate for Europe, because, you know, UEFA don't really mind how the FA nominate their clubs for the Champions League. It's just custom and practice that it is the top four, or the top three as it used to be, right? So the FA could decide to say, right, we're going to nominate the top four clubs as the season finished. Right?
But let's leave all that Champions League and all of that behind us, because we've pushed a load of information around in that time. And just let's hope that the EFL and the Championship gets to a position where it does conclude its operation. And Gary,
just one last thing, Eamonn.
Go on.
Eamonn, just one last thing about I don't know who of our team turned around and said about the respecting the NHS and whatever that. We football in general will respect the NHS, but it will be dictated to by the government for when we can go back. And it won't be a footballing decision to say, we can play football now. It'll be the government via, obviously, the protecting the NHS stuff and that. So if they turn round to us as an industry and say, right, football, you can now play, that's not football disrespecting the NHS. If it's not the right time, it'll be down to the government, because they're the ones that are providing the rules of when and where people can do whatever they're going to do. So, you know, it wouldn't be down about football. If the government turns around and says, yes, you can do it, football are not going to turn around and say, no, we're not, at the end of the day, are they?
I doubt it. And let's hope for a good decision. OK, we're going to take a break there.
Bethany Warren here again. Thank you for listening to our show. Don't forget, Love Sport Radio is now mothballed pending change in current pandemic conditions. Love Sport are still running previous programmes, and you can hear some programmes on demand online. You can still listen to repeat programmes both online and on DAB. Hopefully we'll be back on the air with them quickly when conditions improve. In the meantime, watch out for our podcast adverts on Facebook and Twitter. Our podcast show links are available on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, Breaker, iTunes, SoundCloud and Pinterest.
Right, welcome back. I've got Jeff Burnige and Ted Robinson in the studio with us. Tonight, it's a legend, hero or thank you that's nominated by Ken Gordon from Chelsfield, and he nominates Scott Barron, a utility player with the Lions who played in a number of positions. Jeff, Scott Barron, your thoughts on him?
Who nominated him, Eamonn?
It's a guy called Ken Gordon from Chelsfield.
Ken must be a young man because, you know, I'm used to these nominations being players that have been, you know, a real influence on supporters of all ages that have really achieved things for the club. In Scott's time, I don't think he can qualify for legend or hero. He did acquit himself well. He was competing for the left back spot, wasn't he?
Yeah.
For a while. Was it with Tony Craig, I think he was? Yeah, but could you see Scott Barron playing in the Premier League? I don't think I could. But he never let us down. His attitude was great. His personality was great.
Yeah.
He's never said anything bad about his time. He wasn't that successful after he left us. I think it's a clear thank you very much, Scott.
Let's hold fire on that.
Back.
Let's hear what Ted's got to say, because it might change your mind, Jeff. You never know.
Well, I understand where Jeff's coming from, and 99% of me agrees with him. But I'll tell you why I will perhaps put him slightly with one foot into the hero bracket for me is the Swindon playoff final.
Yeah.
Because Scott Barron was a left back who got asked to go and play as a right back.
That's right.
In the Swindon playoff final, and he was actually one of the best players on the day. Because I can remember, you know, when you see team sheets sometimes, and we all do it, as soon as you get to the ground, you want to know what the team is, and as soon as you find out, you think, when there's something that's different or wrong, you think, where's he going to play? What on earth's he going to be doing? And if I remember rightly coming into that, it was Jack Smith that got injured. Who I thought was a tremendously solid right back who never put a foot wrong and was, you felt comfortable with Jack Smith in lots of ways. Seeing that Scotty Barron was going to be playing a left-footed player on the right side, it frightened the hell out of me. And I wasn't sure that he was capable of doing it. And lo and behold, the guy actually pulled himself out to be a star on the day. And, you know, lots of players have become heroes for cup finals, if I can put it that way, through what they've done on one-off occasion, you know. I'm not sure he'd done enough to be a hero. Perhaps if he'd scored the goal and not Robbo, I'd be saying he might have been a hero in that game. But he certainly performed beyond what I expected on that day. So it's a big thank you from me, with maybe a toenail in a hero thing for that game.
And you concur with that, Jeff?
I mean, if ever I'm in court, I want Ted defending me. What a brilliant advocate he was. I must admit, look, I had forgotten that he played right back in that final. As soon as you mentioned it, Ted, I did recall. And do you know what? Any player that's nominated hero, legend, thank you, who played in that team on that day, the minimum they get is hero. So
yeah, there is
I
that.
think, and you're quite right, he had a faultless game. I don't think he'd ever played right back in his life. I think he probably found out late in the week he'd be playing there. No, you've convinced me, Ted. You've convinced me. I would like to put him in the hero box.
So I've got to tell you, Eamonn, that's a first. There's not many chairmen that I've ever convinced anything. So I'm noting that one down.
That's well worth remembering. So we'll go with Scott Barron, a hero for his efforts against Swindon Town in the playoff final.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
Super. Thanks, guys. What we're going to do now is we're going to listen to an interview I made earlier with Alan Dunne. What we've had is some of the listeners have wrote in and asked to talk about the 2 trips to Wembley and the year in the Championship, and asked if we get some of the players to talk about that period of time. we got hold of Alan, and he was absolutely delighted to do so. So let's just listen to Alan Dunne recount those 2 Wembley finals and the first year back in the Championship. Hi Alan, great to speak with you once again. How's it going in lockdown?
I mean, yeah, it's, I've managed to do plenty of new things I never thought I could do. Cooking, reading,
excellent,
listening to podcasts, garden stuff, and I seem to got all my jobs out of the way in a couple of days. And since then, I've just been watching football games and studying players and studying the game every time off.
Well, what a great time to catch up on things that you always wanted to do, or perhaps not wanted to do, but at least you're enjoying something along the way. Alan, it's great to have you back, as I said, and I suppose the questions surrounding 2009-10 and 10 and 11, having lost out on promotion to the Championship in 2008-9 in the playoff final to Scunthorpe, what were you and your teammates' expectations ahead of 2009-10 in League One?
Well, the disappointment going back to the Scunthorpe game was it was, other than the result, it was a fantastic day, obviously,
yeah.
with the turnout we had for the fans and I think the first trip to the new Wembley, exceptional atmosphere and you felt everything was in place for us to go up that day. And for some reason it didn't happen on that day. We sort of got in front with Gary's unbelievable goal.
The best goal at Wembley, they reckon, ever.
Yeah, I agree. And I felt we got excited then, and I felt we just sort of froze, and we obviously didn't fulfil it and go up that year. And disappointment, and I mean, when you win at that point, I think everyone thought we were going to do it. We'll be ready to go up as a team, as a club, possibly. Where Scunthorpe, possibly no, because it's obviously what happened to them the following year.
Yeah.
But we felt we did enough in the game to win it. Missed opportunity, but you get that little bit of taste of success and what it's like to be at Wembley and to be involved in a big game like that. And we knew that as players, and Kenny knew that. And then obviously the following year, we soon got over the disappointment. Kenny weren't going to sit back on that. And I think that disappointment drove us the following season to go into that season, knowing it was a big year, 125-year anniversary, I think, for the club that year. So it was sort of written, so it was going to be, that year was going to be a special one. But we know how difficult it can be to get back-to-back playoffs, to get back-to-back in any league, and to do it twice. It shows the sort of how well Kenny done and put the players and the club and the board and the fans together, how well we did as a club together.
Yeah, I mean it was a fantastic turnaround, and you obviously clicked in again straight away in the following season, and it was back to I suppose work in League One. What were the highlights of that season that led to the second Wembley appearance?
Looking back over my notes on that season, and I mean, all the fans will remember we did a double over Leeds, which was incredible. Yeah. To do a double over Leeds is a fantastic day. Wherever you finish in the league, if you beat Leeds twice, I think fans are sometimes happy. Charlton, we beat 4-0. Remember that? Great result of that season. But we had momentum going in there. We sort of picked ourselves up quickly, and we kept the same group of players. Many great highlights and great wins. But personally, obviously, getting promoted and getting to Wembley again, for me, winning the Player of the Season and scoring obviously a last-minute goal also, which got us a vital point, which I went on to collect the Goal of the Season award, which I think Moa was a little bit like, we were itching it out between both of us who would get it, because he scored a couple of screamers, I scored one with my left foot. Yeah. But the group, and it was all about the group and the club, and many highlights that I picked up an award that any of the players could have got. We had a fantastic group and a fantastic season, and I was lucky enough to win an award. Being there for so long, it was a special occasion, special year for me and the club in general.
Was there anyone during that season that sort of stood out for you as a player I suppose, developing, coming along, starting to make it all happen?
I think Morrison was clicking at that time. He was really starting to click, and off was. But the players were becoming the generals, the older players, and were becoming Lamine Wobbo and Frampton and Fordy and players were becoming the generals of the team, and everyone was developing under Kenny because he get the best out of you, Kenny. He got the best out of me as a person and a player. And, Kenny would drive the team, and he had a man management skill which was very good for me and the players. And he knew what success was. He'd done it. And he knew how to get it out of players. He had his managing ways. How he did it was different to what I did before. I was used to a lot of praise and from people, and Kenny was one not to praise as much. He would always keep you on your toes. So it drove the team and drove us to be successful as a club. And fair play to Kenny for that.
And how was it going there for that second time around to Wembley, to that final?
Well, it was. If you look back at the first year, I think we kept to Wembley, and I think we took it. This is how we managed it differently. I think the first year we went to Wembley, we were similar to the second year, but we went there and we went with the suits and went to Wembley for the tour. Got involved in all of that, which means nothing on the day to you. And I think on the day, our energy and sometimes the focus wasn't as much on the game as it should have been in that way. Where the second year we went, we had no tour, we wore tracksuits, we turned up, we played the game, we won. And there's that difference in terms of your focus and what we learnt from the previous year to the year of Swindon were two different scenarios. And that was our learning, and I think we deserved that year to go up. We were phenomenal that year. And you got a Huddersfield game that went to the semi-final was incredible. And then to get the goal at Wembley for himself as being captain, and us growing up together and playing together. And it was a great memory for the fans to be there, but to see Robbo lift the trophy and to score the winner was fantastic. Hard work we've done as a kid, because we were a youth team. We came for the system together.
That's right.
As players. At 15, 16, when you're over Greenwich Park and you're running hills and you're getting that training, we did all that together, and to get some success out of it and play so many games in Millwall and the club we love, it was just a day we can always cherish. No one will ever take that away from us.
No, they never can, and it's a great story for the history books without a doubt. So 2010, 2011 starts to come in front of you. Championship beckons, vice captain this time round to Paul Robinson, and a 9th place at the end of the season. How did you anticipate that season coming up?
I think your first year back in your championship, I think for any club, sometimes and you can't get carried away. You want to ultimately get to 50 points and survival in your first season is sometimes in the good season. Because you can build on that. Some clubs go up again, like Scunthorpe when they did, and come straight back down. But we didn't want to do that. Our expectations were to survive in that season and build on that. And I think we started our first game with Bristol City away. We started really well. We started with 3-0 Bristol City. I think our second game was Hull, 4-0. Then you start to get excited. Our defensive record that year was very good. One of the best defences in the year that year. To finish where we finished was way above our expectations, and we had some phenomenal. I think we had Big Palace 3-0 at the Den, and I think
that was
we had Jason Puncheon around that time who scored a hat trick, and I think that game killed us keeping him. If I'm being honest. His value, I think, I remember seeing we should have took him off after we scored the first or the second. That's the third one, and he literally tore him to pieces. We knew his value had gone up, and we weren't going to keep him. Had we kept Jason, who knows what might have happened that season? He was a big player for us, and I think we lost him not long after that. But like I said, 9th in the championship, one of the best defences in the league. Some great away days, some great home days. Fantastic for the club, and it started to put us on the map as a football club.
Yeah, you were back on everybody's radar again, and of course in the press It's only really the Championship or the Premiership that gets much coverage. The rest is all a little bit, a couple of inches of print on a paper. But that season, you certainly showed yourselves to be prominent in the sporting press. I mean, at the end of the day, it was 2 brilliant seasons that came together there. To finish in 9th was a great achievement. Well, it's been great to speak with you, Alan, and I'm hoping that'll give the fans some thought, and they'll come back to us and ask us a little bit more, or ask us for someone else's view on that period in time. Alan, it's been great to speak to you once again, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Thanks, Eamonn. I wish everyone well, safe and well, and good luck to all you out there, and hopefully see you down again soon. Good luck, guys.
Keep it safe on the streets out there, Alan. So seasons 2010, 2011 and in 2011-12 were the 2 seasons that Alan focused on, and it was great to hear from him and good to hear that he's been busy learning new skills in the lockdown. I bet Mrs. Dunne is absolutely delighted. Jeff, Alan rated Kenny Jackett highly. What are your thoughts on Kenny Jackett's reign as a Millwall manager?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really rate Kenny Jackett. I'm longing for him to show people what he can do if he can ever manage in the Premier League. I'm not 100% certain, but I suspect he'd do a good job. He was an absolutely brilliant choice. I will say he was my choice, and I had a big part to play in him becoming the manager.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember now. I did listen to the interview, I can't remember, but it was interesting. When I was chairman for that brief moment in time, the person I wanted for the job was Kenny. I did a lot of research. Swansea would not give me permission to speak to him. He was on holiday in America at the time. I interviewed a number of other people, some very well-known names, but no one compared to what I'd heard about Ken. So when there was a vacancy shortly after, I think it was a year and a half afterwards, coaching at Man City.
Man City, okay.
He was a reserve team manager. Well, he left Swansea and of his own free will. Sven Goran Eriksson hired him to be reserve team manager at City.
Oh, right,
and
that's right.
And the family moved up there.
Yeah.
So when we were asked for nominations, I was still on the board, and I put forward Kenny, and we were asked to put forward 3, and I said Kenny, Kenny, and Kenny. I was so convinced he was the right man, and I think the situation we were then in was even more the case. He was interviewed and turned the job down. The chairman then asked for further nominations and spoke to... He was manager of Yeovil at the time, and they wanted $100,000 compensation. John wouldn't pay it, and then phoned me up one day and said, "What would you do, Jeff? Now, we it doesn't look as if anybody wants the job, and the one that does, we can't get." And I said, "Go back to Kenny." He said, "What makes you think he'd be a different answer?" And I said, "Well, number one, make yourself football club chairman," which he wasn't. He was holding club chairman, and somebody else was football club chairman. I said, Kenny was interviewed by a panel of 3, none of which were you, and mysteriously he turned the job down. I'm telling you, make yourself chairman, phone him up, tell him you've made yourself chairman. The line of communication will be straightforward from Kenny Jackett every day. Pick the phone up to you, John. You'll get a different answer, in my opinion. And that's what happened.
Wow.
I'm delighted that Kenny came to the club. I think he was brilliant. Again, he chose his own moment to leave, and he was replaced, wasn't he, ultimately by Neil.
I'll turn to you, Ted, really, and say, how would you sum up Alan Dunne's contribution over those 2 seasons with the trips to the playoffs?
Well, I think if you look at Dunne's career, and by the way, he's one of my favourite guys to interview. I mean, I love Al. He's a guy that's had his problems.
Did you hear that, Alan? You make sure you notice Ted says that.
He's had his problems, and I've always got admiration for a guy that battles away through problems that he gets the better of, basically. Yeah. But I think that coming to your point about Dunne, I think it's not a coincidence that his best 2 seasons probably for us was that 2010, 2011, probably 2009, 2010, 2010, 2011, 2011, 2012, that sort of period,
Yeah.
I believe, which was obviously under Kenny, Dunne matured not only as a player, as a person.
Yeah.
And I think he gained an added focus to his professional career and his personal life. I think Kenny had a big influence on Dunne, that we all knew Dunne had a bit of something about him, if I can put it that way. Was he consistent enough in his early days? No. Could you see there was a player in there that could do something for you? Yes.
Yeah.
Did he really fulfil his potential? For my eyes, he did in them 3 seasons. He got to a level that I always believed he was capable of. But there's a lot of players that have shown the ability that Dunne had, and for whatever reason didn't reach that level, for want of a better way of putting it. So, I say I've got a lot of admiration for Al, and I'm sure the fact is there that he said, he had a lot of admiration for Kenny. And I agree with Jeff. Kenny's not the flashy type of manager that football tends to want these days. But what I can see Kenny doing, and what I can see, if he ever gets the opportunity, that is, Jeff, I can see him being exactly like Sean Dyche. I could see him keeping a Burnley or someone like Burnley. I think with Kenny, though, it'd have to be, it wouldn't be one of the big boys, it'd be one of the smaller clubs. But I could see him getting someone up into the Premier League and keeping them there.
Yeah.
But I think Kenny's got a good idea also, because I genuinely, again, for admiration, I believe he left us at the right time. I think he felt he'd done as much as he could, and that is also the sign of a very good manager, in my opinion, when he believes it's time to move on. A little bit, may I hasten to add, like Neil.
Yeah.
The timing that Kenny left us, I think, was right, and I just thank him for all the good times that Kenny Jackett brought down to Millwall, and I genuinely believe, I know we've been down but come back up, but it's his management that's really made us into more of a championship side than a League One side.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Nice. That's a nice tribute, Ted. I agree with you there. Do you want me to comment on Dunne, Eamonn?
Well, it'd be lovely if you had a few sentences. That'd be wonderful.
I'll try and be brief. I agree with what Ted said. I'm agreeing with Ted a lot tonight. We'll have to. Well, perhaps we're both going soft in the head with all this lockdown, but Dunne is a classic. Difficult early life, and took a long time to mature, and it took Kenny to bring maturity into him. It took marriage as well. For a long time he was in lodgings, but older people remember Harry Cripps. Do you know what? Managers tried to replace him year after year after year, and he kept bouncing back till he achieved hero status. And Dunne was the same. The number of years he's played reserve team football for Millwall is unbelievable.
Yeah.
He kept finding himself back in the stiffs. But he fought back, and in the end he matured. I think Kenny played a big part in that. I think his lovely wife and family played a big part in that. And I've got nothing but admiration for Alan Dunne. I think his autobiography was brilliant, by the way.
Well worth a read, anyone that knows of it.
That year that we went after the Swindon playoff and we went up, we finished 9th, didn't we? We challenged right up to the very end. Dunne played 39 games that season for us. So, he was an integral part of a side that nearly got into the playoffs that season. So, and I think, I think it's all been said. He's a lovely lad. He knows where he was wrong in his life. We can all see that when we look back. But thankfully, he managed to overcome these problems and prove to be a Millwall boy through and through.
He did.
They weren't all problems within him. I mean, the club was in turmoil for much of his early career.
As well, yeah.
So that didn't help him mature. But when the club stabilised,
he did.
And when he became more mature as he went into his later 20s, then you saw what he could have been, and it could have been much earlier, and his career could have been much better if he'd reached that level 4 or 5 years earlier, which I think he could have done.
Hey, Jeff, he done a great job for us, and I'm going to leave it on that. He absolutely
Can I just say one last thing, Eamonn, about him?
Go on.
He was a right back, but the best game I see Dunne play was in the centre of midfield at Coventry. He was outstanding, absolutely outstanding.
He was.
No, he could fill the midfield slot quite easily. Alan Dunne, you've done a great job for us, mate. We're going to take another break.
Hi, Patricia Maslin here. The Millwall Community Trust needs volunteer help. Whether you're an organisation with bodies able to assist or an individual, the Trust needs you during the pandemic to support the vulnerable and the needy. If you can help make a difference, please contact Sean Daly, the Trust's Chief Executive Officer. You can contact him by phone on 07958 027060. Once again, that's 07958 027060. Or you can contact him by email, sdaly, that's SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. I'll repeat that, sdaly, spelt SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. Thanks again if you think you may be able to help or you know someone who might.
Well, you heard in the break that the Millwall Community Trust is still looking for volunteers to help them in the good work that they're doing in the community in the current pandemic. So please contact Sean Daly. He'd love to hear from you. On Monday, Millwall released a video recording of Steve Kavanagh, the Millwall CEO, being interviewed by Billy Taylor, the club's Director of Communications. The interview revealed much of the background surrounding the club's response to the pandemic situation and some future plans. And with thanks to the club, we play a copy of that audio track now.
Steve, firstly, could you just give us an update of exactly what's going on behind the scenes at the club at the moment, given the circumstances we're all in?
Yeah, look, there's obviously been a sudden suspension of all activities. You know, everything has really stopped and ground to a halt. You know, even retail, we were carrying on running. Then when the suspension happened, we had to stop doing that, goods out, whilst keeping staff. So unfortunately, we had to take the tough decision to furlough most staff, or a number of staff. We kept a flexible skeleton staff on to allow us continue to operate as best we can. But, you know, it's tough. Contrary to reports, we haven't furloughed the first team players. They're actually on their annual leave at the moment, and as they would normally do on annual leave, you know, they're following training programs and keeping themselves fit. So, you know, so we're hopefully, you know, they're in a reasonable shape and ready to go when things start. But yeah, it's a tough period at the moment.
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of debate about football clubs up and down the country using the furlough scheme. Why did we choose to go down that route?
Look, we're in a different world to Premier League. You know, our revenues stopped overnight. Our revenues are coming predominantly from ticketing, hospitality, retail, all those areas, not from the TV monies. You know, the worlds are too different. So we, like any other business in this country at the moment, has taken all the steps we can to protect the cash flows, protect the business, and to try and make sure that we protect staff and their jobs all the way through this, which is what our plan to do is. We're making sure, and we've promised, the important thing is that we promised all staff at the moment they're all getting paid 100%, and we're sticking to that. And so we're taking all the measures we can. One of those is furlough, but we're looking at all other measures as other businesses are.
Steve, can you sort of summarise the extent of the financial impact that this is having on a club like us at the moment?
But as I said in the previous answer, our income stopped overnight. The only incomes that are carried on through the season ticket holder incomes that's coming in online. And even on that, you know, we appreciate that for season ticket holders, it's a really difficult time. For everyone, it's a difficult time financially. And those people that have been able to carry on supporting us, I think more than anything, has been fantastic. And we really do appreciate that and appreciate those people's efforts. You know, for us at the moment, you know, we're looking at new income streams and what we can do, but it's really difficult because there's so much uncertainty. And until we know and have a plan of how we come out of this and how we can start the games going, it's difficult for us to do what we can do.
Another key element to our operation is that of the Millwall Community Trust. How has this kind of crisis affected their day-to-day goings on?
Yeah, it's had a real impact on the trust. There's a number of staff which are furloughed because also programs have stopped, income stopped overnight for them in as much, if not more, than us, which is a real shame because of the work they carry out and what they do, and how they're going to be needed when we start coming out of this on an issue such as mental health. But even now, we're helping where we can. They've offered to look after and school vulnerable children for the council. We're speaking to the council all the time. As a club, we are assisting King's College in storing certain elements, and I had another hospital contact us yesterday. But the trust lost. They're about to have the Teddy Sheringham and Tony Cascarino evening. The Derby match was our community game, and that was about to, raise substantial unrestricted funds for them. It's a real tough one on them because their financial year was end of March, and they're struggling. But we as a club stand behind them. We're there to help them because our community and everyone around us is vitally important to us, and they're part of that Millwall family, and we will help them through, and hopefully get as well that we see them as really, really important to what the world's going to look like when we start coming out of this.
Well, Steve, the latest information sort of suggests that football, the season, should it resume, will be behind closed doors. What are yours and the club's thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, I think it's important that we resume the season, we finish the season. I think that's vitally important for integrity of sport, integrity of the league, and trying to make sure that we do the right thing. Players, management, supporters, their health and safety has to come first, and we have to follow the advice of the scientists and make sure that we are doing that when it's appropriate and when it's possible. We can't get ahead of that. And of course, we've got huge sympathy for the fans because football is about fans. Our supporters, we know what they are. We know what they create in the den, and to not have them there is going to be a huge miss. And we're devastated if that's the case. But of course, it's about health and safety and making sure people are well first and foremost.
What discussions have been had behind the scenes in the past few weeks in terms of and around compensating season ticket holders should the rest of the campaign be behind closed doors?
Look, from the word go, as soon as it became apparent that was a possibility, we've been exploring that, working on that. I've spoken to the EFL. We've worked with the management team. You've been part of those conversations, trying to understand and look at what we can do. Assuming, and it is an assumption, that the games are streamed on club channels such as I follow, then we're pushing hard that season ticket holders are able to access that. Of course, that there's a lot of hard work in us being able to work with the season ticket holders, but that's going to need all of us to get some understanding. But we're pushing hard to ensure that season ticket holders will get free access to those games in the event they're streamed in that way and behind closed doors.
Steve, do you know what sort of impact all of this is going to have on next season?
No, I don't know where we're going to be next week. So, no, look, it's obviously a huge worry. There are various comments made and rumours made, but the government have been quite clear. They're not talking about anything beyond lockdown. And as a result, to even start to think about what next season is going to look like is really difficult. I think let's focus on where we are today. Let's think about making sure people are safe and well. Then the priority can shift to getting this season completed as quickly as possible, and the logistic and the technical and the contractual issues that because it's not straightforward. But next season, let's not get there yet. Let's take little steps first and foremost.
How often are you speaking to the chairman about what's going on in the club and sort of everything surrounding this current crisis?
Yeah, I'm talking to John daily, if not sometimes twice a day. He's obviously in America, so he's frustrated he can't be here. But and they've got, he's getting the news reports in America, not so exposed to where we are. So I'm updating him on that. We're talking about all the various plans, different information that's coming out, and keeping each other informed. John's been a phenomenal chairman, and he's a phenomenal chairman, and he's exceptionally supportive, and no more so than at this time. And to have John Berylson behind Millwall Football Club now is really important to us. His message is, look, we'll get through this. the Millwall spirit will see us through, and let's keep positive, let's keep focused, and let's make sure that when we get going as a unit, and that's the whole Millwall family, we're ready to go, and we're ready to try and push for the playoffs. That's where his focus is, and he's really strong about that. We have our days. It's tough like everyone else, so I don't want to underplay that side of it. But no, he's in a great place. He's fit and well, which is good. And yesterday he was talking about how he can get over here if we do get games going and where he stays. So looks like my spare room might be used. But he's joking aside, he's really really engaged and ready to get going.
Obviously, all of our discussions are kind of with the caveat that this is all fairly trivial stuff, the football industry, compared to the wider context of the situation with people losing loved ones, not just in London or the country, but kind of sort of all over the world. And in that, tragically and unfortunately, we've lost supporters along the way.
Yeah, look, everything we talk about and everything about looking forward comes with a position that it's irrelevant really to people that have lost people and to people's health at this moment in time. That I think that should go without saying, but you have to say it. It is important, and we've got every sympathy that people who have lost people, and indeed people who have got people that have been ill or seriously ill. We are aware we've lost certain fans. I've spoken to a few families. And as a club, if we can do anything for anyone, then please let us know, and we'll try and be there for you. We've spoken about what we can do in the future, and we will do something to recognise everyone that has been involved in this, be it key workers, to people that have lost people, and recognising them. But that's for another day. At the moment, I want people to stay well, healthy, and keep safe.
Jeff, as we heard, Steve Kavanagh laid out the financial situation and the reasons for taking the steps that the club took to minimise the financial impact and support the support staff. What is your view on the actions taken?
Well, as far as we can tell, listening to Steve's interview by Billy, I think we have to be satisfied with that. I mean, we haven't heard anybody publicly complaining about their treatment. At least I haven't. But I would think across football, certainly at sub-Premier League level, clubs have all furloughed their non-playing staff, or at least the majority of them. And I believe that's what we've done. We kept the skeleton non-playing staff going, and yeah, fair enough. I am a little bit interested. I would like to know which of that brilliant youth team that played so well at Chelsea that night. I was one of the lucky ones to get a ticket. They got to the last 16 of the FA Youth Cup. They will have been told in February, or certainly by the beginning of March, which of those were getting professional scholarships. Professional contracts. And that's not normally announced till the end of the season. Well, therefore, that is now on hold. But I'm looking forward to seeing how many of those are going to get signed.
Yeah, interesting times ahead, and perhaps those are questions that, I doubt if we get a definitive on that at the moment, but just something to flag up and see if the club come back with something. I think that's good points. Ted, in hearing from Steve Kavanagh, it seems that John Berylson is the key to our continued future and beyond. You've mentioned JB before. Does this alter your view?
No, I mean, listening to what Steve was saying, I mean, things like he's speaking to John daily, which is not surprising, knowing John. He's been... he's fit and well, which is important to us as well, obviously, being the chairman. And he's already talking about getting back over to watch games when they get up and running, and Steve Kavanagh was saying that he might have to stay in Steve's spare room. Well, if he can't stay in Steve's spare room, well, John Berylson's welcome at my door anytime. He can stay in my house because, again, he's an exceptionally good chairman. And for someone who, as I've said this before, when you think about the number of games that he comes over and tends to watch, he's more than some chairmen that live in this country, and have only got to go down the road to their teams. He's an exceptional man and an exceptional chairman, and I'm sure in crises like this, he's the right man to have in charge.
The man at the helm.
Yeah,
I think you're right there. I mean, there was a good couple of bits about fans in all of that. There was the issue about the season tickets. Jeff, do you think what they're trying to do about season ticket holders for the remainder of the season that's to be played is fair and good?
Yeah, I do actually, but I think there will be a minority of fans who want their money back for the unplayed games. But most of us spent that money nearly a year ago.
Yeah,
and it's spent, and you kind of take it on the chin. But I don't know what they'll end up doing. Perhaps if they don't get, if we can't watch those games, perhaps they'll give us the benefit of those unplayed games off of next season's price.
You never know.
Seen, but...
or as Pat Maslin said, they can give her a T-shirt and she'll be happy with that. So
I said, Eamonn, I'll settle for, because it may well happen and it might well be that we can go back to football matches by then. They can keep the prices for the tickets that I've already bought and just give me a playoff final ticket.
You've said that before. You have.
I have. Exactly. And but no, in all seriousness, I think what Steve Kavanagh said that they are trying to do, and I think it's the right thing to do. If I'm honest, if it is going to be behind closed doors, then season ticket holders could watch it on the iFollow or whatever for free. Don't have to pay for it, you know. And I mean, whether that also goes to games that should be away games, if you know what I mean, I don't know. But I mean, it's obviously the case. I've got a Charlton Athletic ticket sitting in my pocket that it should be refunded for, I suppose, as well. But I think that when whatever is decided, they will try their best, and as they always do, to look after season ticket holders, I'm sure.
I echo what Ted said about the chairman. I mean, it's obvious his heart's in the right place. I don't think we've got much to worry about, but there'll always be somebody that moans about it, whatever they decide to do.
Yeah.
Well, you two better be careful and maintain your social distancing, because I'm getting a little bit worried about how cosy you are on the show tonight. It's worrying me.
If it's behind closed doors, I'm going to get on a train at London Bridge and pull the communication cord where you can see through to the stadium as it goes past. How have you thought about that?
Yeah, have you seen what the fine is for that, Jeff?
Oh yeah, good point. It's a shame it's not the old Den. There'd have been a crowd up on that hill, wouldn't there?
There would have been.
I've got to be honest though, Jeff and Eamonn, the one thing that this lockdown has taught you to realise how much you really appreciate what you have. You know what I mean? Going down to Millwall every other weekend and being able to meet up with people and have a beer and all the simple things in life, or the things in life that we take for granted, when they're not there, it just makes you appreciate them that much more. And I can't wait for the day when it goes back to normal.
Yeah, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? I think the interview with Billy and Steve really did bring out a few things. It was nice to hear their thoughts on Sean Daly and the Millwall Community Trust. And Quite unique. Well done. Okay, well that's all from us this week, and we hope you join us again from 8 p.m. next Friday. In the meantime, we must not forget those who have lost their lives during the pandemic. Our thoughts go out to their families, friends, and those that may have cared for them. To the people who are the key workers, and in particular the NHS, we are immensely grateful for the incredible work each and every one of you undertakes in these very challenging times. We recognise your bravery and commitment and thank you for taking care of us when we need it most. You continue to be our heroes. To all, stay safe and good night from me.
Good night from me.
And good night from me.
Yeah.